I want to talk about the top e-commerce platforms for small business in 2021. So pull yourself up a chair and let's talk about it. Everything I see out there about this subject is such slanted garbage. I mean, it's either completely uninformed opinions or just designed to get you to click on an affiliate link.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
This is a difficult subject to cover because it's hard to know everything about this many platforms. So everyone has one or two they're experienced with, and that makes their opinion biased. I'm no exception to that. However, I'm going to try to give it to you as straight as I can, despite my own biases. The first thing we need to do is narrow this down to a manageable number of platforms. We're going to do that by popularity because I think popularity is one of the most important things to consider when choosing an e-commerce platform for a small business. And let me explain. E-commerce is getting complicated. There's so much more you have to provide these days to create a modern e-commerce experience that creating even a small portion of your needed functionality from scratch could be cost prohibitive. The more you can get from the platform you choose, the better. However, e-commerce platforms are designed to be middle of the road when it comes to functionality. Their goal is to provide features that appeal to a wide swath of the market in hopes of attracting new customers. And they can't be everything to everyone, and they definitely don't properly address all the auxiliary things that you'll need to build and market your business. As a result, it's important to have strong marketplace support for the platform you choose. That way, if the platform doesn't have something out of the box, your odds of finding an affordable solution for that piece of functionality is greatly increased. The more popular an e-commerce platform is, the bigger the market is for third parties to provide themes, apps, or third-party services to that platform's users. And that third-party support could really save you a lot of money or even put functionality that would have been way out of your budget within your reach. Long story short, popularity matters, and I think small businesses should stick to popular platforms. The next hurdle in giving you this list is determining what's actually popular. And there's a lot of conflicting data out there about e-commerce platform market share. Some of it's just outdated information or skewed by platforms popular in certain regions. For this list, I went to TrustRadius, which is an online review service, and found their list of e-commerce platforms. I sorted those by the most rated and reviewed and took the top 10. An important note is that I didn't do it by the highest rated, just the ones with the most ratings and reviews. There's definitely some outliers here, but for the most part, this list tracks pretty well with the other popularity lists out there if you're looking at the names on the list and not necessarily the order. The top 10 most popular e-commerce platforms were Bigcommerce, Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, Woocommerce, Kentico, Weebly, Godaddy, Magento, and Salesforce Commerce Cloud. So the big question, which one's the best? Well, there's a problem we need to discuss.
Houston, we have a problem.
You're asking the wrong question. There is no best. There's only what's best for you and your business. And this answer is going to be different for each of you. So I'm not going to crown a winner because that would just be putting out more slanted crap like what's already out there. If you just want a useless opinion where someone tells you what's best without any context to your business, then you shouldn't have any trouble finding that content. What I want to do is provide some helpful info around each of these platforms, and hopefully that helps you understand the strengths of each of these and narrow down your choices. Now, this is going to be fairly high level, or this video will end up being 12 days long. And if this doesn't clear it up for you, just head on over to jamerson.com/go and we can set up some time to discuss it in more detail within the context of your business. All right, so let's set up this conversation. Here's a couple of definitions to start. These platforms are either going to be SaaS, software as a service, or open source. SaaS is good in that it typically includes hosting and takes care of all the technically complex stuff you used to need to be able to deal with in an e-commerce platform. However, you aren't going to get access to the source code. So if you want to do something really crazy, you're just going to have to rethink how you'd handle that. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you can't do it the way you would have in an open source platform. Open source platforms, on the other hand, are great because you get all the code to modify however you see fit. The world is your oyster. Make that thing do whatever you want it to do. The bad is that you get all the code to modify as you see fit. And that comes with technical complexity and costs that can often bog down small businesses. SaaS is usually good for small businesses unless you're doing something unusual or complex. Just keep that in mind when I mention whether a platform is open source or SaaS. There are really 3 different types of platforms on this list. One is a SaaS platform aimed at e-commerce first. Honestly, these are typically where you should start looking first if you're a small business that wants to limit your technical complexity but are serious about e-commerce. And this includes platforms like Shopify and Bigcommerce. Next are going to be SaaS platforms that were initially aimed at the simple-to-use content management market, and then they've added e-commerce functionality. This being your Wix, Squarespace, Weebly options. These typically are better for you if you primarily need simple-to-use content management and you're adding some light e-commerce on top of that. And the third is going to be your open source platforms like Woocommerce and Magento. These give you a ton of power and flexibility if you're doing something unique, but can be technically and financially a lot to handle for a small business. Let's talk briefly about each of these individually. Now I'm just going to start at the top of the list and work my way down. If you have problems with that, I didn't set the order. Trust Radius did, so blame them.
This is not my fault.
First on the list is Bigcommerce, which is a SaaS platform, but they focus on being a more open and less restrictive SaaS platform. And that just really means it's a little easier to get crazy with it if you want to do something outside of the ordinary. Bigcommerce has great support and a solid community with a great marketplace support for third-party functionality. And that's important because it can save you a lot of money when you're looking to do something the platform won't do. The downside is the consequences that come from being focused on being more open, and that's complexity. Now don't get me wrong. Bigcommerce is pretty easy to use, especially compared to more complex enterprise e-commerce platforms. But we're talking about small business here, and that includes folks just getting started. In that context, Bigcommerce is not designed to be that super straightforward, limited platform like some of these others. You know, the kind that your grandmother, who just got on the internet, could use to build a site to sell her quilts. Let's move on to Shopify, which is also a SaaS platform. Shopify is very much designed for that entry-level user. Maybe not your grandmother's level, but first-time entrepreneurs that are a little internet savvy. With them providing the payment processing right out of the box, I don't know if it could be any easier to get online and selling. Shopify has one of the biggest and most robust marketplaces of third-party functionality. It might literally be the biggest, but I'm not going to do the research to confirm that, and I don't like saying stupid things that haven't been researched, so y'all make the bold claims in the comments. They also have a very active community of folks singing the praises of and supporting the platform. And that makes it really easy to find help if you need it. Their insistence upon handling your payments is a double-edged sword. When you're just getting started, it's great because it's one less thing for you to worry about. But if you're a little bigger and you want to explore other payment options, it's not so good. Shopify also really locks down their API usage, and that can be a real problem if you're trying to do something outside of the norm. All right, now Wix, another SaaS platform. Wix is a content management system first, and they've added e-commerce capabilities to that. So if you have a real need for an easy-to-use content management system, but light e-commerce needs to support that, then this could be a great fit for you. It's focused on the DIY market with a lot of simple drag-and-drop editing capabilities. So your grandmother might actually be able to figure this one out without calling you about it every 15 minutes. I love you, Mama, but I've got work to do. The pricing is extremely affordable, which saves you more money for your own bourbon budget. Their marketplace of third-party functionality is well supplied, but it's a little all over the place. Seems like it may need a little more maturity there. And the biggest downside is going to be its focus on content first and the entry-level market. That typically means limitations and potentially issues as you scale. So you might find yourself outgrowing the platform if your growth leads to the desire for a more complex e-commerce experience. Our fourth platform is Squarespace. Squarespace is really design forward, so it's all about how the site looks. But to achieve that, the functionality and third-party ecosystem is very locked down. They really hand curate what options you have available, and that can be good for quality, but it really limits your options. Squarespace is also SaaS, so it's easy to set up, and they have some great template designs. So if it's all about how it looks and your e-commerce needs are fairly basic, then this could be a good option for you. But Once you start adding complexity, their limited integrations and payment gateways could be problematic. And fifth on the list is Woocommerce. Woocommerce is built on top of WordPress. So if you're using WordPress for content management, then it makes sense to consider the platform so you just kind of have everything in one place. Woocommerce is open source, so you can do all sorts of crazy customizations. You probably shouldn't, but there are no technical limitations to prevent you from doing so. Because of WordPress's popularity, Woocommerce is actually the biggest e-commerce platform on the planet the last time I checked, at least as far as the number of sites using it. And that means there are plenty of integrations and an active community of developers and experts if you need help. But with Woocommerce being open source, you're responsible for hosting, updates, and all the technical complexities that come with that. It does require you to be proficient in WordPress, and Woocommerce tends to get frustrating for non-technical merchants that want to focus on growing their business, but don't need the flexibility of open source. We also often talk to folks that grow frustrated with it when their business begins scaling and they start adding a lot of SKUs. Next on the list is Kentico. I've never even heard of this one. I don't know if it's an anomaly on TrustRadius's list, or if I've just missed this platform's rise. And there's a new platform that pops up every freaking Tuesday. I can't be expected to keep up with all of them. But research was done, and it appears that Kentico is another SaaS platform that is really CMS first. It's focused on the Microsoft ecosystem and is not really aimed at that entry-level market with their pricing. If you're uncertain enough of your needs to be searching and watching videos like this one, this probably isn't your best choice. Let's continue to Weebly. Weebly wobbles, but it never falls down. That always comes to mind when I think of this platform. Weebly is definitely another SaaS platform aimed at that beginner, non-technical market. And that makes it pretty simple and easy to get started. It doesn't have quite the level of polish of drag and drop that you see in Wix, but it's in that same genre of platforms that are CMS first, restrictive to make it simple for you with some e-commerce added in. So kind of the same as Wix and Squarespace in that regards. The weaknesses are basically the same as those. You'll be fine if your needs are simple, you start getting outside of the norm or achieving some real scale, and you may start bumping into those guardrails they add to keep things easy to use. Which brings us to our next one, and that is Godaddy. I mean, really? Godaddy? Does Godaddy have an e-commerce platform? Of course they do. Everybody's got an e-commerce platform these days. And apparently, upon doing some research, Godaddy is yet another SaaS platform, but they're using ADI, or Artificial Design Intelligence, to try to build the site for you without anybody actually having to do any work. And that might be cool if you need the help, but it's just more limitations if you want more granular control over your user experience. And it's definitely aimed at that beginner or less technical user. I'm not a huge fan of the concept, but that might just be the bad taste left in my mouth from some of the shenanigans GoDaddy has pulled over the years in regards to domain name registrations. And now, the big boy, good old Magento. Magento's open source and one of the most flexible platforms on the planet. I mean, you can run multiple stores on one installation and craft whatever user experience your heart desires. You have all the power in the world with this one.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
If you watch this channel, and I assume most of you that have made it this far into the video do, you know I'm a fan of the platform. But this is a small business discussion. All of that power and flexibility comes at a cost. Regular updates and patching and maintaining a mountain of customizations can be quite costly from a focus and a monetary perspective. But if you need it, it's a solid choice. And next on the list is Salesforce Commerce Cloud. I don't really look at Salesforce Commerce Cloud as a platform for small business, so I don't think it belongs in this debate. But that same thing could be said about Magento. It's on the list, and there's some pretty big small businesses out there, so we'll discuss it. Salesforce Commerce Cloud is another SaaS platform with a lot of powerful features. The Salesforce ecosystem is really the strength behind the platform. Their CRM is extremely popular and is their foot in the door to a lot of organizations. Obviously, being another Salesforce product, it's easy for them to build in native integrations to their other offerings. So if you're tied to the Salesforce ecosystem, then considering Salesforce just makes sense. And those are the top 10 platforms for small business according to Trust Radius. This may be the longest video I've ever done that wasn't a live stream. So let me know down below if there's any context around these that folks should know when considering them. It's always a pleasure talking to you, but it's way past time for me to get back to my bourbon. My name is TJ Campbell, and I'm the CEO and founder of Jamerson, where we help businesses like yours take those next steps in their e-commerce journey. If you're ready to improve your business and looking for help, go to jamerson.com/go, and I look forward to speaking with you. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.